Story 1. My sister raised my nephew with ruthless parenting and almost made himself exit this world. Now she's shocked that he said he doesn't care if she lives or dies after she had a stroke. I come from a big family. We are 5 siblings, 2 sets of twins, 50F, my sister, whose twin died in utero, 47M, me and my brother, and 42F, my other 2 sisters. We are talking about our oldest sibling. My parents were really careful not to parentify her because they both had the same fate in their families. They took good care of us, and all of us have fruitful and satisfying careers. The problem is, at least for my sister, that they didn't push us there. They encouraged us, but they never had the expectation. This was a problem for my oldest sister. She always found them lazy and unmotivated, and she limited contact with us after she graduated from law school. She became a really successful lawyer, married to a renowned surgeon, who is my friend from medical school, a really ambitious guy who also has OCD, and had his son at age 32 via IVF. It was all planned. After she had her son, aka my nephew, she started to push him really hard. She tried to make him read at age 2, sent him to piano lessons from age 4, and had one-on-one tutors since first grade. He was never allowed to have free time, and every moment of his life was curated. The only time slot he had was Saturday afternoon, when he would visit my parents, and we always planned events and free time for him. His teenage years were absolute hell. He was forced beyond his capacities by my sister and her husband, and when he was 16, he tried to commit suicide at the hospital where her husband works by stealing benzos from the nurse's counter. After that, he had a good time in the inpatient ward, 5 months in the ward, 3 months in a group home, and afterward, he wanted to stay with me. I am the only one of my siblings who does not have a child, and I live with my husband in a 3-story villa, so he could have the roof to himself. My sister's husband had an awakening and divorced her after this. He and my nephew had a year of family therapy, and last summer, my nephew moved back in with him and decided to pursue medicine. I don't live in the United States. Medical school starts directly after high school and lasts 6 years. During that time, my sister really dug in her heels. She blamed us and her ex-husband for letting my nephew be weak. She said he was alive and had to endure this so he could become resilient and untouchable. She said in court, "I don't care if he feels bad. This is life. You either climb the ladder or you fall down. If he fell down, there's nothing we can do. Life goes on." I have never seen someone look with such pure anger as the head judge, who said, "You are a really successful lawyer, I'll give you that, but you are a terrible person and a being that can't be called a parent," and then turned to her ex-husband and said, "You need help, a lot of help." Last January, my sister had a mini stroke, TIA, and she genuinely started to think about her life, as I understood from my brother, who is the only one of us who checks up on her. Last week, she tried to reach out to my nephew, but he directly said he did not care whether she was alive or not. When she tried to talk to me about it, I briefly said, "What were you expecting, sis?" and ended the call. Now the whole family is calling me a jerk and thinks I should have supported her. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Not the jerk, she treated parenthood like a boot camp, and now she's shocked the recruit went AWOL. Actions have consequences, even for top-tier lawyers. Ops response. I do remember how her fellow lawyers talked about her after this, and she was very heavily criticized. I have some high school buddies who are lawyers, and they had very juicy gossip about her. She is one of the lawyers they call Haifisch in German. She is known for her relentless ambition, an almost pathological hunger for dominance. Commenter 2. Growing up with her as a sibling must have been fun. On a side note, my parents are also the type of people who ask, "So, why is it not 10, instead of congratulating your 9? And that's something I have sworn never to do with my kids. Ops response. She did not interact with us much, so I can say she wasn't a big problem for us. She was a problem for our parents, though. I remember her yelling at them for not sending her to the boarding school because they thought it had a really unhealthy school culture. I wonder sometimes if, had they sent her to school, she would have woken up way earlier. Commenter 3. Your poor nephew. He never got to have a childhood. He only got to be a kid for a few hours a week, and the rest was spent constantly working. His home life was so horrible that an effing inpatient ward was a good time for him. Your sister is the devil. I hate her on your son's behalf. She's evil. Honestly, your brother-in-law is incredibly lucky that his son gave him another chance, because he's just as guilty for standing aside. Ops response. My brother-in-law only knew hard work and grinding, and I don't blame him. He was, and still is, one of the best cardiac surgeons in my area, and I work with him at the same hospital. He is a really good guy at heart and came from a really poor family. I got him, and his son saw him in a very different light when my sister wasn't in the picture. Life is complicated. Commenter 3. Do you think he was also victimized by your sister? Ops response. To a degree, yes. My sister calculated her marriage to him with precision. At the divorce hearings, when she was asked about her marriage, She said it was calculated to maximize the benefits of being married to another person and just saw it as a step in the right direction. Commenter 4. Dude, she has nothing left. Lost her divorce badly despite being a successful lawyer, husband separated, son who wouldn't care if she died at this moment, siblings who think she is insufferable? Successful career for whom now? No wonder she is struggling with her health now that reality has struck. Ops response. She wanted to lose that divorce, this is the fact. Commenter 4. Why? She doesn't want to be with her brother-in-law and son? Or has she found someone else to start her new experiment at family? At 50 plus, it would seem like a fool's effort. Ops response. I think she saw them as dead weight and wanted to be free as soon as possible when my brother-in-law sided with my nephew. It is really hard to understand what my sister's logic is. Commenter 5. I don't know if you've already described it, but can you tell us about your parents' parenting style, philosophy, and methods to the madness? I'm prompted to get any help I can, as I have a young daughter who is a bit of a meanie and not one who likes to take advice. Either way, you're not the jerk, I think you feel it was a long time coming. Ops response. They were heavy on natural consequences and being tolerant of others. Work and general ethics have always been important to them, and they always relayed the message of collaboration and cooperation. They also really emphasized the need for relaxation and self-care. My father and mother are also in the healthcare field, although they retired when I was in residency, and they saw too many burnouts. Commenter 6. I'm really confused about the family dynamic established by your parents. Your first paragraph is extremely unclear. Did they create this precedent of pushing you all into high-powered careers? Ops response. Honestly, no. I chose medicine because I really liked it. My brother became a welder because he didn't have a thing for academics. My two younger sisters are preschool teachers, one works in the special education field. Honestly, they're really chill people. Update 2 days later. My brother had a talk with her. He laid out all the stuff I told him and made her read this post. To our surprise, she knew about Reddit. When she asked what to do about it, he said she should work on herself and maybe come to peace with the fact that she will die alone in a care home. He said, she was looking really defeated, but she understood why she was abandoned by the family. She will leave town to transfer her office to another state because, as she told me, it was too painful for her. Again, an egocentric perspective, but she will leave, at least. She is leaving next Monday. My nephew said he wants to look into her eyes one last time before she leaves, so he will meet her on Saturday afternoon at my brother's house. Second update 2 days later. Good morning from the gray city of Cologne. I have an update, and after 24 hours to answer people's questions, I will log out from this account because I think it is over. Also, Reddit is really overstimulating for a guy who is in the second half of his 40s. First of all, my family does not blame me for her situation. They think I was a jerk for not listening to her. They apologized after seeing the post, though. All is well, we communicated. I also apologized for being too rough on them. My sister is another story. Last night, we went to the house of my brother and sister-in-law. She was there, sitting with no expression, just a dull face. When my nephew greeted her, she just said, "Hello, son," in a really neutral voice, scary even. She looked at him after 5 minutes of silence and said, "I failed to raise you. I gave you so much pain, and I almost caused your life. For that, I am sorry. I am sorry for not realizing it sooner. On Monday, I will be leaving your lives, and I will not ever come back. I just want you to know that I did what I thought was best. I understand now it wasn't." My nephew looked at her and said, "I unfortunately know. I know and see you still believe that we have to move on. I will move on, mother, but without you. I will move with the people who loved me, not with someone who sees me as a training dog. Farewell, mother." And he gestured with his head that he wanted to go. I looked at my sister and said, "Bye, sis. I hope you find peace with your new life." She silently nodded, and we left. My brother and sister-in-law told me that she will legally separate her ties with us in every way possible. They are helping her to do that, and my sister-in-law said, "We need this, and she needs this. Us being separate will be much better for all of us." Not a big ending, but it is an ending to this. My parents and she had a talk on Friday, and they realized the wounds are too big and painful to heal together. Not a happy ending, but at least it ended. Thanks to all for reading. I also took note of your recommendations, and I will be applying them. Edit. Last note, dear all, I took your concerns and had a phone call with her. I talked with her, and she does not have an ounce of it. She said she does not want to come that close to death ever again. She is currently preparing for her new life, and she is just like herself, stoic, ready for new horizons, and leaving her old life behind. I am also a doctor, and I have had my fair share of suicidal patients. She is fine, but also, thanks for your concerns about her. Honestly, I don't care anymore what is happening to her. My parents care about her death, and that is enough for me. Goodbye. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. German lady here. 48, aka same age as Op and his siblings. To be honest, I was not surprised either, reading that this is a story happening in Germany. Our parents' generation is, sadly, a terrible one, and it's only partly their fault. They were born either during World War II or shortly after, to war-traumatized parents who were part of one of the biggest crimes in human history and came from a nation of perpetrators of the Holocaust. Our parents' generation was raised in silence, with suppressed emotions, a need to function, and a total lack of empathy. There is a huge emotional atrophy in our parents' generation that has bled into our generation. They grew up with the need to function and achieve in order to be worth anything, building from the ruins, guilt, and horrors of a war caused by their parents. My generation is full of emotionally stunted people who don't know how to build connections with their children beyond function and making them achieve something. Some did the emotional work or had therapy to heal, most have not or are just starting to now in their 40s or 50s. And our children have suffered for it. I see it in my own family and in myself. I was the kid in the late 80s/90s suffering from depression and addiction. And I still work on myself in therapy. Never had kids, because I was aware of my trauma and my inability to provide emotionally for myself, let alone any children. Through all of this, I finished university and functioned tirelessly, and I'm, career-wise, the most successful of my siblings. They all got married and had children. These children are the third generation after the World War II generation, and guess what? Mental health is bad. I have an 18-year-old niece with major depression, anxiety, and emotional development below her age. My brother and his wife did not do the emotional work they should have done to deal with the trauma inflicted by our parents. The difference is that my nieces and nephews have A, me, and B, my sister, who has done the work. Her kids are better off. My point is, Op's sister is not an exception. She might be an extreme, but there are thousands of stories like this or similar in Germany, and it's not talked about enough. Mental health resources are also insufficient. I believe this goes back even before the World War II generation. This is the trauma war brings to humans, for generations. And the human race has not learned anything and has not had time to heal, because it doesn't just affect Germans. We are walking right back into it. Op's response. The interesting thing is, my parents are both pharmacists and, before having children, pursued professional and personal growth in the 1960s. They were born in 1949 and had my sister in 1974. At the time, my mother was actively working as a researcher in the pharmaceutical industry, in the field of psychiatric medications. This makes the whole thing all the more incomprehensible to me. Third update 5 days later. Multiple people PM'd me, and my inbox was spammed with messages from Reddit, so I'm going to give this update and disconnect my email address from this account. To the people who were concerned, I sent the update and she laughed. Yes, she laughed that people thought she was going to kill herself. She said, I am getting better, even though I know I failed my son. He will be fine, I will be fine, and we will all move on. At this point, I was enraged. I unleashed everything and told her how she could switch so fast from begging for acceptance to indifference, and what she said really made me think she is a sociopath. You all caught me in my weakest moment, but after leaving you behind, I realized my biggest mistake was thinking I needed acceptance from you people. I then asked if she didn't feel bad when the judge burned her in court. She said, at that time, I was only relieved to be free of you, and when you question your mortality, you search for companionship instinctively. I don't know how to translate this from German, but I tried, but I know better now. Don't expect a call from me, and don't wait for a funeral announcement. Goodbye. And she hung up the phone. I don't know what else to say other than I hope she dies alone in a care home, with no one left to hurt. But with this hatred against us, I hope it happens soon. Good night, everyone. Story 2.
My dad got a tattoo in the style of our matching tattoo with his new family, and now I feel like he never cared about me as his daughter. My father, 41M, and my mother, 40F, divorced 3 years ago. I live with my mother. My father remarried a year ago. His wife has 2 children, 18F, 15M. Me, 18F, and my dad got a matching tattoo 2 years ago. It was a simple outline tattoo of a photo of us. After my dad got married, things started to get a bit more distant between us because he started to spend more time with his new family. Besides that, I think he doesn't want to see me around them. I don't know why. After all, I've never treated his wife or stepchildren badly. Yesterday, he refused to meet me on a weekend when we were supposed to spend time together, saying he was unavailable. He reposted a story of him hanging out with his new family. While looking at the photo, I saw that he got a new tattoo on his arm. It was an outline tattoo of a photo of him with his new family, just like the tattoo he got with me. Now, I know that millions of people have these tattoos and it's not my original design. Still, I'm disappointed that he got a tattoo with his new family in the same style as ours because I always thought that tattoo was special between us. Now I'm thinking of getting it covered or removed. I called my dad in the evening and asked him why he was hanging out with his family instead of meeting me. He said they planned it earlier, which doesn't make sense because it was agreed in court after the divorce that I could spend time with my dad every weekend. So we planned it earlier is a pretty BS excuse. He also knows that I'm totally okay with spending time with his family. When I told him that, he said, "It's not that simple." I guess I'm too dumb to understand complicated things because he doesn't even try to explain it. Lol. Then I asked him why he got his new tattoo in the same style as ours. He said he didn't think it would be a problem for me. I told him, "You broke something special between us, how can you not realize that?" I think I'm going to get my tattoo covered. You can do the same. As a result, he thinks I'm overreacting and I shouldn't be so selfish. My mom says what my dad did wasn't such a bad thing. She thinks we should sit down and talk. I'm not sure. What do you all think? /relevant comments. Commenter. Getting a tattoo in the same style could have been a cool idea if he talked to you first. The fact that he didn't, then appeared to avoid you to hide it, shows that he knows it was crappy. Even if that wasn't the case, it's your body, and you're allowed to tattoo whatever you want on it, including covering up a previous tattoo. But that also means you don't get to ask him to cover up his. You can hate it and tell him so, but you can't demand he change it. Commenter 2. If your dad won't explain things to you, then you can't be surprised when you form your own conclusions. As for the tattoo, it's your body. I know I wouldn't be happy having a tattoo that made me feel bad. That being said, it might be worth seeing if you can sit down with your dad and your mom to get some clarity on his troubling behavior, to see if that changes how you feel about the tattoo cover-up. I'm mostly thinking about the time and the cost, and making sure you are very sure it's the right thing before spending the money on it. Commenter 3. I'd bet money that the tattoo was his new wife's idea. I'd also bet she's the one who wants family time on the weekends. Someone doesn't want Op to be part of their new family, and I doubt it's the dad. Op throws a monkey wrench into the fantasy of their new, insular family unit. Op adds an edit to their post. Tomorrow I will try to talk to my dad face to face. I hope to discuss openly whatever the issues are between us and find a way forward. I don't think my mind will change about the tattoo, but I will not rush to get it covered. Thank you for your advice. Update 1 day later. This morning we had breakfast together and had a long talk. It turned out that the problem all this time was my stepsister. He told me that she was struggling with the whole marriage. The reason he got the tattoo was to show her that he loves her as much as he loves me. He also said that she didn't feel at ease around me, which I was really surprised about. We hadn't fought once, and we hadn't even been together long enough to have any disagreements. That's why he didn't invite me that day. He wanted to be a good father figure in her life. Still, he said that I might get closer to my stepsister in time, who knows when. He also said I can get my tattoo covered if I want, but he would never do that to his. For him, the tat still has the same special meaning. Honestly, it would really make me feel like a jerk to get mine covered while he keeps his. I'm not sure what to do. Lastly, the hardest thing for me was finding out that they were moving to another state. His wife got a better paying job, and he's going to start a business with a friend there. He told me that he will be very busy with all the moving but will spend as much time with me as possible until he moves. He also promised to visit me often after the move, which I don't think he'll be able to keep. I guess he's really moving into a part of his life where I'm not in it, and there's not much I can do about it. Thank you all. Second update 5 days later. Today my stepbrother replied to my story, and we started talking. I told him about the latest things, and he told me a lot of things I didn't know. He said that it's true his sister doesn't feel at ease around me, but she never said anything to my dad about not inviting me. In fact, her discomfort isn't so great that she couldn't stand to be in the same place with me. It was my stepmother who asked him not to invite me that day, and she came up with the whole idea of the tattoo. He said his mom doesn't like my mom at all. He's not sure if this is based on something or not. When I asked my mom about it, she said she never met that woman even once. I think her dislike for me comes from her baseless hatred for my mom, and my dad played along with her. Also, I didn't mention this here before, but my dad told me they are moving in November. My stepbrother told me they are moving next week, and that was the plan all along. He told me he is sorry for what happened to me and only told me these things because he thought I had to know the truth. He also asked me not to let his mom know about this conversation. My dad wasn't really like that. He was a good man. I mean, all those lies, cutting me out of his life, that's not like him. I don't understand why he turned into such a person, but I really don't want to talk to him again to get it. He's moving away next week anyway. I told my mom about this and asked her to call my dad, tell him that I would never see him again. My mother passed this on to him without mentioning the conversation. I also blocked my dad from everywhere. Soon I will get the tattoo covered. Love you all. Third update 5 months later. Hi, I just logged into this account and saw people asking how I'm doing. I want to give a little update, but it's not too cheerful. My dad really moved away that September. Just before that, he came to our house to talk, but I couldn't confront him. Still, I broke no contact. We ended up talking on the phone many times. He promised a lot, that he would make things right between us, that he would come to visit me, and he didn't keep any of it. 2 weeks ago, I stopped talking to him again. I've also been going to therapy since the new year. It's not only for my dad, I have other problems too. My therapist is really nice, and she helps me a lot. Apart from all this, my life is actually pretty good. I have my mom and friends who are there for me. Lastly, I kept the tattoo. I couldn't make a final decision about what to do, and I think it will stay like that for some time. I don't think I'll be posting another update later, so please take care. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Thanks for updating. I'm so sorry your dad turned out to be such a deadbeat. His wife truly has him wrapped around her finger. One day, he will wake up and realize how much he's missed out on with you. Maybe you'll be generous enough to welcome him back, maybe not. But remind him how his lies and neglect have hurt you, and that he needs to put in a lot of work. Ops response. I don't think he'll realize it, but I hope so. Fourth update 14 months later. Hey, this account randomly popped into my head, and when I logged in, I saw that some people still message me for an update. First off, the fact that I'm back here a year later kinda tells you life hasn't been super smooth lol. It's been a year full of mistakes. I failed some classes in college, got fired from my part-time job, and my roommate and I are struggling to pay rent. And yeah, I moved out. My relationship with my mom is still great, nothing new there. As for my dad, some of you, the 3 people reading this, are probably gonna be mad, but I'm talking to him. It's hard to explain if you haven't met him, but he's kinda one of those people who just has something about them. No matter how mad you are, he somehow finds a way back into your life. Still a terrible dad, like, really bad, but not gonna lie, he did help a little this year. I asked him for money like 4 or 5 times, and he sent it twice haha. The business he said he was gonna start is actually doing pretty well. I follow their Insta page, and I even made a few reels for them. One of them got over 100k views. I didn't get paid or anything, but he complimented me. It's kinda embarrassing to admit, but my relationship with my dad is low-key like a drug. When he says something nice, it makes me happy, but then he always ends up doing something that pisses me off again. I don't know how long this weird cycle will go on, but for now, I guess I'm okay with it. And I feel guilty for even saying that. By the way, he said we might see each other in person this summer, like just the 2 of us going on a little vacation for a week or something. I don't really believe it's gonna happen, but still, a promise is a promise. Maybe it will, I don't know. Also, I don't talk to my step-siblings. Not in a dramatic way or anything, we just kinda naturally stopped communicating, not that we talked much anyway. Honestly, I don't really feel like reaching out. I hear stuff about them from my dad sometimes. I pretend to care, but it goes in one ear and out the other. No clue what my dad's wife is up to either, he doesn't bring her up, and I don't ask. About the tattoo, it's still there. Turns out covering or removing a tattoo isn't as easy as it sounds. I'm not even a tattoo person, to be honest. If I could go back, even if things were good with my dad, I wouldn't have gotten it. I think I'm just gonna leave it for now unless they invent some pain-free, 5-minute removal tech lol. I know this probably isn't the kind of update most people were hoping for, but I'm not a movie character. Life's messy, love you all. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I don't want to sound cruel, but if, after all this time and everything you've been through, you still describe your relationship with your dad as terrible and yet get emotional when he throws you a kind word, then you're not moving forward, you're just stuck in the same cycle that broke you from the start. And it feels like you've been going to therapy just to validate that continuing to expect crumbs is normal. It isn't. The worst part is that it seems like you already know. You call it a drug, you know it hurts you, you know he doesn't keep his promises, that he doesn't respect you or value your work, but still, there you are, celebrating a pat on the back as if it makes up for years of neglect. And in the process, you drag your mom down with you, as if it's fair for her to see you continue to seek approval from someone who has never known how to be a father. You're at that stage where it's no longer just someone else's hurt, it's your own choice. No one blames you for still having hope at the beginning, we all fall there. But at this point, you can't say you didn't know. You've proven it to yourself time and time again. And that's the saddest thing of all, that even though you know, even though you feel the cycle repeating itself, you're still hoping this time will be different. If you're going to keep putting your faith in him, do it with your eyes open. But don't disguise it as I'm okay with him when what you're doing is begging for affection where there's never been any real affection. You're not okay, even if you're choosing what kind of relationship you have with him, because he still takes what he wants. And much less say you're okay with yourself while you continue to reduce yourself to someone who settles for so little. Because you're not a child anymore. Maybe you need everything to explode before you finally do something, but hopefully it won't get to that point, because these are usually life-threatening situations, although you already have a horrible consequence of having a tattoo from someone who would probably throw you into traffic so their children would laugh. Because even if you don't see it now, you're wasting valuable parts of yourself on someone who's already shown you they're not going to take care of them. But that's your problem if you want to stay broken. I think this best describes it. It's sad, but not the kind of sadness that inspires compassion, but the kind that inspires pity. Commenter 2. Hey up. I believe we're about the same age, and I've been in very, very similar shoes. My therapist helped me stop making excuses for my dad, and one of the things that resonated with me most was needing to initiate the process of grieving the dad I wanted. When a parent fails you, you grapple with trying to create this idealistic persona for them, collecting good moments and deeds like proof. But at the end of the day, the person you love doesn't actually exist, and the person who does exist isn't worth your energy. You have to let go of this version of your dad that you've created, and it really does feel a bit like a loved one dying because you have to accept that this person is gone. But really, they were never truly there. It sucks, and it's hard, and it makes all of the bad all the more real, but it's ultimately the most healing process I've ever undertaken. Obviously, I don't have the full story, and I'm sure there's plenty of nuance to every individual parent-child relationship, but I'm wishing you strength and happiness. I finally went no contact with my dad a few months ago, and it has been so freeing and rewarding, like taking back all of the feelings of abandonment and just creating a new start.
Story 3.
My friend wouldn't pick up her kid and told me I need to learn to babysit better after I told her that her kid slapped me in the face, so I called the kid's father to pick her up, and now she might lose custody. I, 27F, am currently having complications with a friend that we'll call Karen, 28F, for this situation. Some context, I have a lot of kids, and I mean a lot, currently 3 weeks from my due date. I'm also typically our friend group's trusted babysitter whenever anyone has an issue with their daycare. So, I'm pretty used to an array of different personalities when it comes to kids in my everyday life. Karen and I have two very different parenting styles. I'm more communicative and personally don't believe in corporal punishment, as redirection and explanations make more sense to me. She follows more of a southern style, raising her voice, and if you don't hear her the first time, you're going to feel her hand the second. That being said, I've finally come to the conclusion that I just can't watch her oldest kid anymore. I don't think I've ever met a more angry child in my life, and I'm by no means blaming the child for his temperament, but it's just not something I can personally handle anymore. He doesn't follow any sort of directions, even simple ones, without lashing out violently. He goes out of his way to physically hurt anything without warning, and I mean anything: the cat, any child, big kid, adult, even the freaking houseplants. The scary part is he always laughs and then follows up with name-calling, swearing, or a lovely shrieking sound that would put any coyote to shame. I know this is really messed up to say, but it's like a rerun of the orphan movie IRL when dealing with this kid. Yesterday, he walked up to me asking for a snack, and before I could even lift my head from washing dishes, he slapped me as hard as he could. It took everything in me not to cry because that would obviously freak out my littlest babies in the house. I put him in my spare room, time out, away from the other kids so I could not only take a breath but reduce the amount of damage he was currently doing in that moment. Mind you, the situation is completely foreign to me. I can't even count how many kids I've watched over the years, and I've never found myself afraid of a child. After the incident, I called Karen and told her she needed to immediately come get her son and make other arrangements for him, but I could still handle her youngest to help her save money. She said he's really not that bad and doesn't think it's fair that I've never refused to watch anyone else's kids. After months of having patience, I finally snapped and said, "Well, none of our other friends have kids that act like a literal demon." I asked her, if he really wasn't that bad, then why had he slapped me in the face? Why was he currently tearing apart my spare bedroom? If he was so easy to handle, then why do I constantly have to be in fear that he's going to hurt not just me but another child in my care? She said she couldn't leave work and that I needed to learn how to better manage the kids I watch. I was honestly so shocked and frustrated that I got on Facebook and messaged the father of her kids to come get them, even though I knew it wasn't his day. I tried to call her again to let her know he was coming to get them, but she wouldn't answer her phone for either myself or him. At 8 p.m. that night, 4 hours after she was supposed to be off, she showed up at my house looking for her kids. I told her they were with their father and that her son's behavior had been reported to him. Now she's saying I potentially ruined her court case for primary custody because the dad had to pick up the kids and realized she was MIA, with no idea he even had the kids for hours. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Not the jerk. It's completely abnormal. The way your friend is raising her child is wrong. The results of her sadistic upbringing can already be seen in her child's behavior. My opinion, your friend's child and the friend herself should be sent to a counselor before this escalates into something more horrible. You're doing a good job of identifying the problem. Ops response. Honestly, that's the biggest reason I told the dad everything. If I'm being transparent, when they were still together, the kid didn't display half of these tendencies. I know she's my friend, but as a mother, I will always choose to protect the kids. Social services in my area are extremely corrupt, so I'm really hoping the dad can get something going. The dad said he's going to request a child lawyer to help advocate for the kids in court, and I told him I would write a statement on the child's behavior. Commenter 2. I can understand why you took the action you did. I mean the following criticism kindly because I think it's something you need to work on for your own good. By saying this, I'm not suggesting you are the one at fault here. You've been a doormat, and you've let your friend take advantage of you for far too long. You ought to have backed out of helping from the moment you realized that her son was a danger to you and your other children. I think it would be wise for you to look into why you are bending over backwards for people who don't appreciate you. Look after yourself more in the future. Your friend is clearly in the wrong, both by not addressing this behavior and by taking advantage of you. It's outrageous of her to ignore calls from both you and her ex when she knew that there was a situation going on with her son, and it was unacceptable for her to turn up 4 hours later than she was supposed to. You haven't got the time in your life to deal with her or her drama. Put yourself and your own family first, and focus on the baby you are about to have. The last thing you need right now is more stress. Ops response. I think for the longest time I let it fly because I just wanted to believe that if I surrounded the kid with positivity, some positive changes would take place, but even having him as much as I do, I'm just not seeing any signs of hope. Commenter 3. How old is this kid that he was able to slap you in the face? Is he tall for his age? Ops response. The kid was 6. I was leaning over the sink washing dishes. I'm not a tall woman by any means, my 9-year-old is almost my height. Update 3 days later. A ton has happened in the last week and some change, so I'm going to TLDR most of it. Dad got emergency custody the following morning after spending the night getting an emergency mental health evaluation at our local hospital. They kept the kid for 3 days, and we took that time to help Dad get his house ready for primary parenting. The lawyer went to Karen's place on Monday for the unexpected home visit, and to put it bluntly, there was a lot more going on than any of us realized. The kids' belongings were placed in a pile beside the couch, where the kids have apparently been sleeping for the last month. One of the 5 bedrooms in her house is completely unlivable, and the 3 rooms outside of her own are being subleased to strangers. Yes, you're reading that right, she took away her children's rooms and put strangers in there. They also documented smells of burning plastic and urine throughout the household, and there are no pets in the home. She was directed to submit a substance test, and as of now, she still has not done that. I am absolutely mortified by the conditions those babies have been living in for months without any of us in the friend group realizing. It also makes sense because she stopped hosting get-togethers shortly after her separation, and we all just assumed she was taking time for herself. Now, the icing on the cake, a lot of you warned me that she would likely try to lash out at me, and you were right, because she absolutely did. She tried to call social services claiming that I had an illegal daycare running in my home. Well, of course, a social worker did show up, but thankfully the situation was clarified within the same day. I explained that 5 of the kids in my house were my own biological kids and the 2 others I was watching for my cousin without personal pay. I gave them receipts and my last couple of bank statements as proof and should be getting a letter within the next week closing the case as unfounded. They have a hearing Friday to establish custody, and the lawyer has already said it will go to Dad. Karen will get supervised visitation if she petitions for it. If anything changes or something else crazy happens, I'll definitely be updating again, but thank you, guys. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I'm confused. Your first post was 2 days ago, but you state a lot has happened in the last week. Did all of this happen in the 2 days since? Ops response. Yes, this whole situation has taken place over roughly the last week, with the main events occurring Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning. When emergency custody is granted in my state, they typically try to schedule an official hearing within 7 days, so Friday will be the official custody hearing with input from the child's lawyer. Op on the dad who has the emergency custody of the kids and Karen. Dad's a really great guy, and honestly, so was she until they separated. It's like she's a different person now. Up on what she knows so far after the dad got involved with getting the kids away from Karen. I'm not exactly sure what the kids said in the hospital that got the emergency order granted, but it was enough for an emergency judge to grant both a child lawyer and custody to the dad overnight. It's definitely a tip of the iceberg situation. We're all anxiously waiting, so hopefully he can give us an update after court. He has a written statement from me that I got notarized on Tuesday, but I made sure to add that I will be open to coming to court to answer any other questions. After talking with a few of the girls last night, we're not really worried about how court will go, we're more worried about whether the judge is going to give her a period of time to get herself together. I mean, all of this stuff came out by sheer luck. What if she figures out how to cover her tracks better in the next 90 days?
Story 4.
Something doesn't feel right in my relationship with my boyfriend, and I'm afraid that he's just keeping me around until he can get back with his ex. It's been 4 years. I'm 29, and he is 31. He's very caring and tells me that he loves me. I don't actually know if I'm right, it's just my gut instinct, but I feel like a placeholder. I think he's still got feelings for his long-term ex. She is in the same circle of friends from university, and I think he lights up around her. They had a fallout over something and broke up 6 months before we met, but I know that he bought a ring for her and was set to marry her before the issues. They are not in constant touch, but she reached out to him a couple of years ago, and foolishly, I said it was okay for him to meet her for closure. They don't meet up regularly or anything like that, but still. I think he's different when he's around her, and another mutual friend said the same thing when I confided in her. This ex seems to be overly happy in his presence as well, which is upsetting for me. Or it's possible that I'm unhappy that he hasn't proposed despite saying he wants a future with me, and I'm reading too much into the situation. Don't know what to do. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Does he ever light up for you the way he lights up for his ex? Ops response. I honestly don't know, because sometimes I think yes, but other times, no. I think he says the things he feels he should be saying about building a life together, but he doesn't always feel it. I don't want to turn into a girlfriend who snoops around looking at phones, but it's tempting. I also feel uncomfortable with the fact that she's still close to his family. Commenter 2. Oh, you'd know. He doesn't light up when he sees you, nor does he seem sincere when discussing a life together. It's been 4 years. If he were genuinely excited to be with you, he wouldn't be seeing his ex or lighting up around her. He'd be taking the next steps toward a future with you. He may have some ambivalence, but that's not helpful to you. You could be with someone who has no doubts that you're the one. Commenter 3. What did he say when you spoke to him about how you feel, especially about feeling like you might be a placeholder? Ops response. I've never told him that I feel like a placeholder, but I have said that after 4 years, he should know if he sees a future with me. He then says he does and that he'd like to settle down with me, but he has done nothing to suggest that he wants to get engaged or married soon. Commenter 3. To be honest, you're hurting both yourself and him, especially yourself, by not either A, being more candid with him or B, leaving because you can't be more candid with him. Even putting the marriage issue aside, how can a relationship work if you can't be straightforward with him about how you feel about the relationship? Ops response. He knows I want to be married, though. I just haven't discussed timelines with him, but after 4 years and at 31, surely he should be thinking about these things too, particularly as he himself said that he would like to settle down with me. Commenter 4. He's not over her. He was ready to marry her but wants to take it slowly with you? It seems like he's ready for marriage but doesn't want to marry you. I'm really sorry. The writing is on the wall. I hate seeing women getting treated like placeholders. I've noticed many men treat life like winter and women like coats. It's cold, are you really going to go without a coat? Just grab a coat for now, any coat. You can always get a better coat later. They don't go without a coat while waiting for the coat they really want. They absolutely will worry you while saving up for a better coat, though. This is unfortunately why many of them don't leave if you're not the right one. It usually falls on women to do the leaving. You have the info you need. It's up to you to make the right choice for yourself. Let that man go. Ops response. Last night, I tried to talk about marriage again, to discuss a timeline, and he said he hasn't thought about it. He needs time to think. I told him I am unwilling to wait more than 6 months, and he didn't say anything other than asking for a few days to think about it. Commenter 5. Well, there's your answer. If I were you, I wouldn't worry about whether this is about his ex or any other girl. The ultimate answer lies with you too, and right now, you're not feeling secure, and he's not able to step up. Men can be clueless. I had to explain to my husband at our 3-year mark how much time it takes to get engaged, pay for and plan a wedding, and then have kids. In his mind, it could all happen a lot faster, and he thought he had more time to propose. But he was serious about marriage and reassured me, and he proposed within a few months. I was also ready to walk, and he knew I was serious. If your boyfriend's answer after 4 years is "I'll think about it," not "I love you and I'm working on it," go. You deserve a man who makes you feel safe and loved. Op's response. He told me yesterday evening over dinner that he loves me, but he doesn't know if or when he'll be ready to propose or get engaged. He said that he used to think it was something he could do long term, but when I gave him a timeline, he realized that he couldn't do it anytime soon. When I asked him if he thinks he'd ever be ready, he said possibly, but he honestly doesn't know. Because I was hurt and deeply upset, I asked him if it was because of his past and his previous relationship, but before I could even complete the sentence, his expression changed, and he told me that's not relevant and not to try and make this about his previous relationship. Update 3 days later. Only a few days after I finally told my boyfriend that I wouldn't wait more than 6 months, he's broken up with me. At first, he told me that he needed to think, then said that he couldn't see it happening anytime soon, and today he said that he can't marry me and that he wanted to end the relationship for this reason. I still feel that it's because, after all this time, he's still hung up on his ex. He won't talk about it and said it was not the reason, but of course, he would say that. I'm still quite sure that she is the reason. He tried to tell me that he still cares about me, etc., but I told him to cut the crap because he wasted 4 years of my life. He told me I can stay in his house for as long as I need until I find a place, but I'll be viewing apartments and leaving ASAP. I feel like such a fool for not putting my foot down sooner and have been in bed all day. How can you do this to someone you claim to love? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I'm sorry to say, but he doesn't love you. He likely still loves his ex. If he loved you, marriage wouldn't be such a big obstacle for him. You are so much better off now. Op's response. I know that's what it is. When I asked him straight if he still loves her, he told me not to bring her into this, and then when I asked again, he said it doesn't matter if he does because he can't be with me. He didn't even try to deny it. Commenter 2. Please don't try to chase the why. Maybe he's still hung up on his ex, maybe he's just not ready for you, maybe he'll be married a year from now to someone else. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's better to accept that as soon as you can and put your energy into moving on to someone who won't drag you around for 4 years. Op's response. It just hurts because I waited longer than I otherwise would have, since he was in a lot of pain following the breakup with his ex, and he didn't bring up marriage for a long time because he had merely gotten engaged to her, and it was a sensitive point. Commenter 3. I predict he'll be back with the ex in a month or less. Unless she's smart enough to tell him to pound sand. Why did they break up? Op's response. I mentioned it in a previous comment, but it was about a family matter relating to a family member of his, where his ex was going against his wishes and interfering. She since apologized to him about it and said she wished she had stayed out of it. I was dumb enough to tell him that it was okay for him to meet her for closure, and she said this. She hasn't had any other relationships since they broke up. I've been in denial, but ever since this happened, his attitude towards her has softened considerably, and they always seem happy around each other, same circle of friends from university, so they sometimes run into each other. Plus, she is still really close to his family. Not sure why I wasn't seeing what should have been obvious. It was obvious to a mutual friend as well. Commenter 4. Guys buy rings when they want someone and don't want to risk losing them. He feels very safe not having to pony up, especially when women see him as the catch. Your 4 years, sadly, show that he has the upper hand. I'm sorry that this played out this way for you, and dealing with the aftermath and the blows it's hit you with is a hard one. Look for how you have benefited, and find ways to be grateful beyond your current dissatisfaction. Op's response. I will. It's hard at the moment. Mutual friends said they tried to warn me that he was still emotionally connected to his ex and that they saw this coming. I should have snapped out of my wishful thinking when he said early in the relationship, while drunk, that he was set to marry her and that it felt wrong to date someone else. He said later that it was just him being drunk, and I believed him, ignoring the red flags. I don't know how I've lived in denial for so long. I'm feeling like a fool. Commenter 4. That's why you've got to park him and all this somewhere and not pick it back up. The weight of it isn't helping you at all. We all make mistakes and have wasted opportunities, resources, time, and more. Acceptance is the key to all our difficulties. Move on as your own personal best friend, and coach yourself to find better ways to use your mental energy. Yes, you are experiencing a loss, but it's part of life no matter how good our choices are. Hugs to you, Op. Op's response. Today we had another chat after work, and even though he's being guarded, He admitted that although he feels like he connects with me on an intellectual level, he feels an emotional bond is missing. He said he needs an emotional attachment, which he couldn't form with me despite trying. I feel absolutely gutted. Second update 2 months later. I had a bunch of people telling me on my previous post that I was being ridiculous for believing that my ex-boyfriend still had feelings for his ex. As I mentioned in my previous post, he had a ring for her and really wanted to marry her before they fell out over something. They then talked things through, evidently for closure, while he and I were together. I knew about it and stupidly thought it would help him get over her. Instead, he started withdrawing from our relationship. Other comments said that there must have been other issues that were the primary reason he didn't marry me. And some people even said that I deserved to get dumped after I gave him an ultimatum, even though I had been waiting for years. Well, it turned out I was right after all, and I wish I hadn't been. I moved out within a couple of weeks of our breakup, even though he said I could stay for as long as I needed to in his house before I found a good place. I heard from a mutual friend not long after that she had seen them together. She later warned me that they had, in fact, reconciled and were together again. She is the same mutual friend who had warned me previously that he had not moved on from his previous relationship, and his actions eventually confirmed that she was right. I'm sure that one of the reasons he insisted on picking up and dropping off my remaining belongings at my new place was because he didn't want me to turn up and find her there. I guess I did the right thing by giving him an ultimatum, otherwise, I would still be waiting and waiting, until he dumped me, probably. What I don't understand is that despite knowing this, I still can't move on. As absurd as it sounds, I still love him very much, despite everything. It's a crazy feeling, and I can't seem to stop feeling this way. He was my ideal man, but I couldn't be his ideal woman. Third update 2 months later. Just under 4 months after being dumped, 2 days ago, I finally woke up after trying to believe the best about my ex-boyfriend. He left me for his ex-girlfriend and had immediately gone back to her. I couldn't stop myself from returning to social media a couple of days ago and instantly regretted it. He married her in a registry office wedding not long ago. I had requested mutual friends not to talk about him to me, and therefore nobody told me. That means he must have made the decision to marry her at least a month before that, because a registry office requires that much notice. So essentially, I was just a girlfriend for convenience, because it's easier being with someone for companionship and sex. The length of time together didn't matter to him. I've been making excuses for him, but what he's done is sickening, and I've snapped out of still feeling love for him. I can't imagine marrying someone else 4 months after ending one relationship. I feel disgusted. Anyway, thank you to everyone who helped me and was supportive. I've been through some of the most painful days of my life.
Story 5.
My family didn't let me say goodbye to my dying grandfather, so now I'm considering cutting ties and saying goodbye to what I thought was family. I just got off the phone with my grandmother, and I am truly at a loss for words. For some background, my parents have been divorced since I was a kid. My father relocated once I went to college, and my grandfather, my father's dad, started battling cancer shortly after my sophomore year. He and my grandmother were unable to attend my undergraduate or graduate school graduations because of his illness. My father, on the other hand, voluntarily skipped my graduate school graduation, citing how it wasn't that important because he already saw me walk across the stage once. This, coupled with years of emotional abuse and neglect, led me to the decision to go low to no contact with my father about 2 years ago. While my relationship with him has been strained, I tried my best to maintain a connection with my grandparents, despite the several states dividing us. My grandfather was a man of few words, but our conversations were always genuine. The last time I remember seeing my grandfather in person, which was before the stuff with my dad happened, he gave me a big hug before going to the airport, a kiss on the cheek, and told me he loved me. I would call multiple times a month, checking in, asking about their well-being, and would sometimes hear my grandfather listening in on the other line. Each time I would ask my grandmother if I could speak to him, she would make up some reason as to why he couldn't come to the phone. She kept me up to date on his treatments, and I knew things were getting bad last summer. My mom and I were going to plan a trip to visit my grandparents, who live hundreds of miles away from me, so I could say goodbye to my grandfather, as I had a feeling his time was coming. We didn't tell them about the trip and were going to do it as a surprise. The week before my mom and I were scheduled to fly out, I got a text from my aunt saying that my grandfather had passed. I was crushed. No viewing, no funeral, but they told me they were thinking of doing a celebration of life in the spring. They did cremate him, but no one other than my grandmother allegedly was present for it. I did call my dad to express my condolences, and he mentioned how my grandfather died disappointed in me because my father and I didn't speak anymore. This brings us to now. I called my grandmother to check in. She mentioned how she regrets and feels bad that I'm not as close to her and my grandfather as I am to my mom's parents, which is true, as for a period of time in my childhood, my mom and I lived with her parents. Growing up, we also lived about an hour away from them compared to the 12 to 14-hour drive it would take to see my dad's side of the family. The one that they see the most and interact with the most is more than likely the favorite grandchild. What? I have one other cousin on my dad's side, so was she implying I wasn't the favorite? But here's what made my skin crawl. She gave me a play-by-play of the weeks before my grandfather passed. Apparently, my grandfather had scheduled a medically assisted suicide since the state they live in is a death with dignity state, 2 days after he had passed, which still would have been the week before my trip to see them. My dad, aunts, uncles, and cousin came the weekend before to spend time with him and say their goodbyes. No one had told me of my grandfather's plan. No phone call, text, email, nothing. Then, the day of my grandfather's passing, the doctors asked my grandmother and the family present if they would like to administer medication to keep him alive just a few hours longer so that other family and friends who may not have been present could have the chance to say goodbye. They declined, saying how my grandfather wouldn't have wanted that. His intestines twisted up because of his medications and caused sepsis, so he was in an exorbitant amount of pain. My face went hot on the phone. I understand not calling on the day of his passing, when there's a lot of chaos and you're trying to process your own grief in that moment, but the fact that there was a plan for him to peacefully go that week, and I could have had a chance to say goodbye, makes my blood boil. Why didn't someone call or text about his intentions? The countless times I asked on the phone to speak to him, why couldn't she just put him on the line once? I truly don't want to believe that my grandfather was disappointed in me, but I'm starting to question why I was so out of the loop. Is it because I'm not the favorite? It took every fiber of my being not to lash out and scream as my grandmother sobbed, recounting the story on the phone. I mustered up the strength not to break down and found a way to get off the phone with my grandmother. I don't know what to think, but my heart is telling me that I am no longer part of that side of the family. If there even is a celebration of life, at this point, I'm not sure I would want to go. My mom suggested I write in and get people to weigh in, but she is on my side. She's been great through all of this. Would I be wrong if I continued this no contact and extended it to my dad's whole side of the family after they refused to let me contact my grandfather and say goodbye before he passed away? /relevant comments. Commenter. Not the jerk. I wonder how close your dad was /is to his parents /his mom, and how much they financially relied on him. If she /they were close, or if they were pretty financially dependent on him, he may have been working behind the scenes to manipulate them into keeping you out of the loop so you couldn't say goodbye. I'm so sorry for your loss and how you found out. And I'm even sorrier that your entire dad's side of the family failed you like they did. Ops response. They are not financially reliant on my father. My grandfather was retired, maybe had a pension, but my grandmother also works. My father occasionally drove my grandfather to chemo and doctor's appointments, but otherwise, my grandmother and grandfather used their own insurance and earnings to pay for treatments. Commenter 2. I'm willing to bet your grandfather mentioned you the most and probably made everyone some type of jealous. And that's why they excluded you from everything. If it were me, when my grandfather died, my ties with that family would have died too. Ops response. The cancer spread to his lungs, and he was on oxygen. My grandmother sometimes said his voice wasn't that strong and he had a hard time talking. Occasionally, I would hear a faint whistling on the other line. I just made it a point to say, okay, well just tell him I called. That I love him and miss him. I'm hoping that if he was on the line those times, he heard that, and even if it was too laborious to speak, he knew I cared about him. Commenter 3. Your grandmother was gatekeeping your access to your grandfather. You can probably think of the reasons, but not being the favorite is likely not one of them. Jealousy, fear of financial loss, control freak, or she's a miserable old drama queen who likes a scapegoat. So sorry for your loss. Update 4 days later. I decided to call my aunt, the one who had notified me via text that my grandfather had passed in the first place. She, I figured, would be the most straightforward about everything. I didn't initially go into it with the whole why didn't anyone call me so I could speak to him to say goodbye, but I wanted to get some answers. I wanted closure. I told her I was having a hard time understanding, if he had a whole plan, and I had numerous chances to talk to him, why I wasn't given the chance to. First, she let me know that she, and seemingly her other siblings, including my dad, didn't know about my grandfather's wishes for a medically assisted death with dignity until after he had passed. She was consumed with her own grief of losing a father, and no one had the space to call me as they were still trying to process their own emotions regarding his death. Up until the very end, he wasn't thinking about anyone but himself. He was a very selfish man, she said. As far as the whole grandfather died disappointed in you thing, she vehemently denied it and apologized for my father's ignorance. She validated my feelings but questioned how much better it would have felt for me to say my goodbyes. I can't say for certain if it would or wouldn't, but I can speak to how I feel, and it sucks. My aunt insisted I didn't have that strong of a connection to him and compared my relationship to the one she had with him and my grandmother did. Realistically, how much of a part of your life was he? I wouldn't let somebody that didn't have that much of an impact on your life while he was alive have an impact on your life now that he's gone. I would certainly hope that my relationship with my grandfather is different from the one my grandmother had with her life partner. My aunt then said I didn't need validation from my dad's side of the family with all that I've accomplished in my life, but she's here if I need to talk. I'm still not sure how to move forward, but I've been journaling, per the recommendation of my therapist. Specifically, writing about my grandfather and my relationship, and the relationship with my father, has been helping me navigate my emotions, seeing it written in words. We're also adding more grief counseling topics into our sessions, so there's that. That's all I have for now. I guess be on the lookout if I ever publish a memoir. Thank you for your advice and words of wisdom. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I don't think anyone was the jerk here. She is right. It was on your parents to call you, everybody else would rightfully assume that they would call you. And she is right with this, you can't have been that close with your grandpa or you would have had the same info they had. When did you last talk to him? Ops response. The last time I spoke to my grandfather on the phone was right after the graduate school graduation he couldn't attend because of his health. He and I used to chat frequently. I call at least twice a month to check in on his condition over the next year and a half after my graduation and the fight with my dad. My grandmother wouldn't let me talk to my grandfather. Commenter 2. Walk away. Nothing she said made sense. She was too devastated to call you, but he was such a monster? How much could it possibly mean to you? That's not her decision to make. Your dad with a disappointment comment, thinking about himself, utterly selfish. But he forewent the week of last respects? Why wait the week then? There is a lot of toxic BS on that side. Skip it, in my opinion. Commenter 3. Oh, sweetie, your extended family and their opinions aren't things you have to do anything about. Your feelings and your grief about your grandpa are 100% normal and okay. You deserve all the time it takes to process this loss. It's exposed some toxicity/abuse in how the extended family, at least this aunt, communicates. Take all the time you need to fully process your thoughts and feelings about that too.